President Joe Biden finally passes funding for border protection, but of course, like always, there is a catch. We all know that a majority of voters are worried about the safety of our country. And this is only made worse by the fact that the Biden administration has kept our borders open, even though many experts and even lawmakers have claimed that he can close them up with executive action. Very reminiscent of how President Biden was able to remove strict policies on the border from then President Donald Trump. This was one of his first actions as president, as he said that he was not making any new laws, just eliminating bad policy. One policy that the Biden administration is not in favor of is the controversial law in Texas called SB4. Now, before we get into this, all I ask is that you guys take 1 second, drop a quick like for the video, and I want to thank you guys so much for sharing this video on Facebook and Twitter. I really do appreciate you guys. So this was supposed to take effect early in March, where police there would have been granted the right to apprehend and arrest suspected illegal immigrants. The White House went so far as to say that putting in place a law like this would only make communities in Texas less safe. They also called it harmful and unconstitutional. But I did talk about funding for the borders, right? But it's not what you think. $380 million has recently been allocated and passed for the borders of Egypt, Lebanon, Oman, Tunisia, and Jordan. Not one red cent is going to our borders though. Why? Because the Biden administration thinks that our problem over at the southern border is not a top concern.
Politico reports that the White House, quote, no longer feels a sense of urgency to act on the border crisis. All right, now listen to what John Kirby is saying about executive action at the border. Roll it.
Is the administration still considering executive action on the border?
I don't have any announcements to make with respect to executive action. I would remind that this argument that the president hasn't taken executive action or is just not true.
So is there nothing more that he can do outside of
I'm not
Congress?
going to get into anything more he would or wouldn't do. I certainly won't get ahead of the president's decision space on this. But the idea that he hasn't taken executive action when warranted is just not true. He has. But there is a real limit to executive action in terms of what's needed down there. What's needed is funding more than anything.
They don't seem to have a sense of urgency on the border now, do they? Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, joins me now. She's at the border.
Now, this has some critics of the Biden White House questioning his latest decision to send almost $400 million for the border security of other countries before our own. I have to look at this as blatant disrespect for the American people. Like, how does this even make sense? So former field officer for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, John Fabricator, he went on X to comment on this. He says that the Biden administration is funding other countries so that they can protect their borders. Meanwhile, he can't do anything for the security of our own. He even asks if Americans have now had enough because this kind of feels like a complete con. Now, speaking of cons, that's what some allege is being done by Mexico and its president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. Sources have confirmed that Mexico's leadership is willing to help us with our border crisis, but that it will cost American taxpayers a whopping $20 billion. And this is not a one-time payment too. They expect this money to be sent to Latin American countries annually, every single year. Many Americans are completely against the idea and say that we are completely equipped to deal with this border issue ourselves, while other people are saying that it wouldn't hurt to get assistance from Mexico. Now, just to give you an idea, there was around 1.7 million migrant encounters in 2021. By fiscal year 2023, that number surged to 2.4 million. This means that we're letting in millions of illegal immigrants that are just straining the resources that we paid for. Now, moving on, let's go ahead and talk about former President Donald Trump and how the law continues to keep him quiet. So this relates to how multiple judges have either tried or even succeeded in issuing a gag order against him so that he can't freely exercise his First Amendment rights. Now, despite this, Donald Trump remains very confident that he should be allowed to speak, especially if he's within his legal rights to do so. Which brings me to how he criticized Judge Juan Merchan's daughter after she supposedly posted a photo with Trump behind bars on X. So Merchant is the judge presiding in Trump's hush money trial and is also the one who put a gag order on the former president. A spokesperson for New York State's court system said that Donald Trump was wrong in his assessment as the account doesn't belong to Laura Merchant, Judge Merchant's daughter. How convenient. However, they also confirmed that the handle for the X account used to belong to her, but that's before she had already deleted it. Yeah, sure. I don't really believe that. Now, this has a lot of people wondering why an old account of hers would suddenly be posting photos of Trump behind bars right after he's given a gag order. Somehow just seems a little bit way too coincidental to be an accident for some. This, however, did not stop Manhattan prosecutors, as they're now saying that Trump commenting on a personal attack is a violation on his gag order. Now, how is this fair? This means that anyone can keep verbally attacking Donald Trump as well as post anything that they want about him, but once he stands up for himself, he gets in trouble. So the former president also claimed that the gag order issued to him was illegal. It was un-American and unconstitutional. And I would have to agree with that. So it's important to note that Lauren Merchant worked under digital strategies firm Authentic Campaigns. In fact, she was a digital director here for this firm, one that worked with Vice President Kamala Harris's 2020 presidential campaign, as well as other progressive campaigns. This includes other high-profile Democratic campaigns, even those of President Biden's. So many analysts believe that this proves that it will be very difficult for Judge Juan Merchant to be objective, as his own family looks to be very biased against Trump. But what do you guys think about this situation? And should Trump not be allowed to defend himself? There's no denying that the political treatment of President Joe Biden and Donald Trump are like night and day. Even though both have done very similar actions, Trump seems to always be under the microscope. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden is given a lifeline whenever needed. At least that's how many critics are seeing the situation. In what seems to be another huge difference for both men, President Biden recently headlined a fundraiser that asked New Yorkers for $500,000 per ticket just to attend. The event saw 3 presidents in one venue, the Radio City Music Hall, with Biden and former presidents Clinton and Barack Obama in attendance. A fundraiser that supposedly raised $25 million for the Biden campaign. However, there was another president who was in New York at the same time. Former President Donald Trump was also within the vicinity, but chose to pay his respects to a slain NYPD officer.
The Diller family you'll never be the same. You can never be the same. And we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently, because this is not working. This is happening too often. This is such a sad occasion. The only thing we can say is maybe something's going to be learned. We've got to toughen it up. We've got to strengthen it up. This should never be allowed. Things like this shouldn't take place, and to take place so often. So thank you all for being here. It's an honor, and it's an honor for me to be here. This is a great family, the Diller family. I met the friends, and I met every one of them inside, and these are just incredible people that are just devastated.
So Jonathan Diller was killed as he approached a suspicious idling car in Far Rockaway just recently. The man who allegedly shot him was Guy Rivera, someone who the New York justice system arrested 21 times. So people like Attorney General Letitia James is feverishly going after Donald Trump for a crime with no victims. Meanwhile, they release murderers onto the streets who ultimately end up killing others, including in this particular instance, an NYPD officer. Does this make any sense to you guys? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. Trump stated that this kind of event happens way too often now, something that he says should definitely be dealt with. He also said that while the 3 other presidents were in a fundraiser, the least they could have done was actually just call the family. Trump also said that Biden, Obama, and Clinton missed a very sad moment for our country. Diller's grieving widow showed appreciation for Donald Trump's visit and said that her husband was actually a supporter of his. Reports show that President Biden spent the night in New York City to meet with campaign donors and left the very next day for the holidays. No mention of a visit to the slain policeman was even recorded. What do you think about that? Does Biden even care? Now, as for myself, I'm going to continue to contribute to this great nation by keeping patriots like you guys informed every single day. Before I go, I just want to thank y'all for hitting the like button. Thank you for sharing this video, and I'll see you on the next one.